Hello, my name is Trebor Scholz. I'm here at the Institute for the Cooperative Digital Economy in New York City, and I send greetings to all of you at Co-operatives UK in Manchester. It's a beautiful day here in New York. I wish I could be with you in Manchester today. So I was given about 5 minutes. So in this short time, I want to give you some insights of what we learned about platform co-ops in the last few years. I'm here at the Institute for the Cooperative Digital Economy, I should say, which supports cooperatives around the world, from Brazil to Hong Kong to Indonesia, Australia, France, the UK, Spain, to make this shift into the digital economy, right? To help them take that step. And let me start by just repeating with what many of you probably already know, which is an introduction to platform co-ops altogether. So a platform co-op, as a reminder, is a website, in mobile app, or a protocol that is central to the business of a cooperative in selling goods or services, right? So they are based on 4 aspirational principles, which again are broad-based ownership. So workers, users, other stakeholders own the platform. Democratic governance, inclusive design, meaning that the platform was designed from day one with all stakeholders in mind at the table. And lastly, they focus on open source design. So I introduced that language around platform cooperatives in 2014, and since then we have built a large coalition of many organizations supporting this work through the Platform Co-op Consortium. There's now a consortium, Platform Co-op Consortium in Hong Kong, there's one in Japan, there's one in Sweden in the making, there are working groups in Australia and Germany, and many other countries. So there are about 350 initiatives. So this is the whole ecosystem, at least what we know. So almost every day somebody tells us, well, you know, there are actually several platform co-ops in Sri Lanka, or people from Indonesia approach us and said, like, well, we have 30 of those here as well. So it's there are many projects that we are not aware of, but we are aware of about 350 initiatives in 97 cities. So Amsterdam, Barcelona, Denver, London, New York, Melbourne, Montreal, Paris are some of the key cities there, in 26 countries. And just again, like for those of you who haven't heard about this, and I know I have very little time, but still I should mention at least a few examples to bring this to light. There's Fairbnb, which launches in just a few days as a community-powered tourism. So a cooperatively owned Airbnb, essentially running in Barcelona, Venice, Bologna, and Amsterdam very soon. There's Smart, a mutual risk cooperative of some 35,000 members in 40 European cities that has really like 2 key interventions. Number one, they create, they basically turn independent contractors into employees, thereby moving them under employment law, which means that they are protected against harassment, they have health insurance and other social benefits. And number 2, they make sure that they get paid 7 days after the work is done. The co-op pays them and then retrieves the money later from this employer, from this company that the freelancer is working for. These are just 2 things. There is much more to it, but in 5 minutes I don't have more time. Eva is a cooperative ride-sharing application based on blockchain coming out of Montreal, also just launched a few weeks ago and got the attention of people around the world. When Uber is taking between 20 and sometimes 50% of the revenue from drivers, Eva is taking 15, right? And this is a principle that we see with this and other platform co-ops, such as Up and Go in New York City, which is a home cleaning platform. They take 5% as opposed to the 30% that is taken by the platforms like TaskRabbit or HomeJoy and others, right? Doing other home services. So you see a real difference. Fairmondo, a cooperative online marketplace in Germany that has about 2,000 people who invested in it, into this cooperative. And so let me just have this serve as a small number of examples. If I would have more time, you would see the sort of plethora of services, but you would see that this is really affecting so many sectors. Obviously, home care, just as equal care exchange in the UK, and many other areas in which this is taking hold. But let me focus on some advantages and also obstacles. So 9 advantages. So first, there's fair pay, right? It's a higher quality of jobs. This is something we could also illuminate if we could go a bit deeper into this by explaining what dignity in the workplace actually means in a cooperative. But I'm sure you're familiar with that. Productivity benefits, right? 5% more productive than other companies. Diversifying membership, ecological sustainability, the fact that co-ops are less likely to outsource jobs, a higher resilience than other business models, a lower level of absenteeism and worker turnover, as Ed Meyer has pointed out, more control over privacy through ownership. So this is a key competitive advantage of platform co-ops, is really that they can really claim privacy because they have full control and of the platform and no interest in profit maximization. So these were 9 advantages. We could list more. There are, of course, also obstacles. So startup funding is a real problem, and there Cooperatives UK and Nesta Foundation have really intervened with their report, which I'm sure you're familiar with and which will be distributed at the Congress. There are management issues, governance problems, like almost all cooperatives have, a lack of visibility of the model, and the fact that they compete against network effects of the tech giants. Right? So the sectors in which this is playing out includes home services, agriculture. Just think of pre-sale farmers markets as we see them here in upstate New York. Worker cooperatives. We are working, for example, with Platform Co-op for distributed licensed translators and interpreters, helping people, mostly immigrants, in hospitals to understand medical paperwork, for example. Or we are working with a Platform Co-op for cooperatively provided beauty services in Ahmedabad, India. And think of media, so news sites like Positive News in the UK, or an event listing site that is owned by the makers and the users of the site under development in Montreal. Think of crafts platform co-ops, right, where cooperative online marketplaces help cooperatives of women in prison in Brazil, for example. Or think of the reintegration of former prisoners. So in the United States, we refer to them as returning citizens. And how could the platform co-op model help to reintegrate those 650,000 people that come out of prisons every year in the United States alone? And then there's this huge area that gets a lot of attention in the United Kingdom of the online infrastructure. So cooperative infrastructure for online services. Think, for example, of this model was just brought about in Italy that focuses on a cooperative online identity. So instead of logging in with OpenID or with Facebook, you would log in with your cooperative online identity. So this is a project that's already well underway in Italy. Or think of the model that I proposed for the Toronto Site Lab project, which is a smart city project that suggested to have a civic data trust that is governed by a resident cooperative to take account and govern the data that are collected in a smart city. Okay, so these were some sectors and possible applications. And let me conclude in the last 2 minutes with some insights. So I mentioned already that there is a significant problem with startup funding. Again, I'm pointing to Co-operatives UK and the Nesta report. There are about 4 other projects underway that tackle this problem as well, and I would be happy to follow up on this if you are interested. Secondly, and this is important, platform co-ops allow co-ops to reach beyond their current sources of work, right? I'm thinking about a sewing cooperative in South Africa and Cape Town that I visited that they were only able to get work from their township, which exploited them extremely to an extreme, really creating a sweatshop. If they could reach beyond the township and get work from elsewhere, their situation would drastically change. The same is true with worker cooperatives in Brazil that I talked to, that where the employer, the organization providing the work for the cooperatives is mainly the government, which now under Bolsonaro is a real problem, right? So these sources of work may dry up. So platform co-ops allow these cooperatives to reach beyond sources of work that they had accessed before, and also allows them to access a more affluent clientele, right? This is true for Up and Go here in New York City, which reaches a completely different clientele now through the app than they used to when they still pinned advertisements on trees, right? Then the next very significant finding is that cooperation between people is a way bigger obstacle than the complexity of the technology, right? So we found over and over that people spend all their energy and resources thinking about the technology and how that will solve everything, when in fact we found that the key obstacle is to these projects to succeed is really people agreeing with one another. You might call it solidarity, right? Or cooperation. So I would put my money there first. Then next, there is of course an economic potential to platform co-ops, and we see this with examples like Stocksy, a stock photography site in Ontario, Canada that made $13 million last year. So that's definitely possible, but I think an even bigger promise is distributed governance. So for large cooperatives that have a governance challenge because their members are distributed over large territories, we find this with agricultural cooperatives in India, but also in Australia and other countries where farmers are quite isolated and don't really know what the central cooperative is, the headquarter of cooperatives is really up to. So a distributed governance tool that allows them, first of all, to know and learn, be in touch with the headquarter that has educational resources, and also allow them to be part in the day-to-day of that cooperative headquarter and really feel like a member. That, I think we found, maybe this is the biggest promise of platform co-ops, is really distributed governance. Next, I mentioned privacy. So based on control over the platform, this could be a significant competitive advantage. And lastly, we found that co-op associations, and their Cooperatives UK is maybe an exemption, are really stepping up to support platform co-ops. They really exist on the margins, in the gray zones, and have really a hard time being supported by the big organizations. And lastly, we found that co-design is really crucial. So to design with the workers from day one. Okay, I'm already several minutes over my allotted time. So I thank you all. And if you have any question, please email us at info@platform.coop, info@platform.coop. Many greetings to Manchester. Thank you for giving me the time, and thank you for listening. And I wish you a fantastic event.